I was terrified of the outside world, and I had a mental breakdown, and I was taken into psychiatric hospital. I'd actually lost my identity. I had a real identity crisis. And it was at this point then that I had a routine blood test where I discovered that I had stage 2 prostate cancer. So my real, genuine, absolute determination is to use my story as a vehicle to actively demonstrate to anybody and everybody that we can rediscover hope. No matter the odds, we can rediscover perspective, which is our superpower, and we therefore have the ability to not just adopt a positive mindset, but to maintain one. I think with mental health in the workplace, something that is absolutely crucial and something that is a prerequisite is the use of effective communication. Part of effective communication is also the ability to listen. It's often looked over and glossed over, but to find somebody that will give you a good listening to is a huge part of effective communication. Through my career with the Ministry of Defence, I had the ability to learn, I had the time to learn about the human condition, and we have to learn a little bit more self-compassion. But in the workplace, we have to allow people to have space. If we feel that somebody has their mental health compromised, give them space and then utilise effective communication. Don't just approach them with a headline from a policy and a procedure, because the words on the page will not reach the person. Talk about my diagnosis. Motor neuron disease is obviously an incredibly difficult subject for some to talk about, and I share how we get diagnosed, what treatments, if any, are out there, and how we can learn to live with the challenge of motor neuron disease. I also talk about stage 2 prostate cancer. Now, of course, I discovered prostate cancer completely by accident. I have no symptoms, and I've learned so much about there's treatments out there that everybody should know about, and not everybody does. I talk about acute anxiety. Acute anxiety can grow so rapidly. We are all vulnerable in this area. Trust me, it gripped me and took me to psychiatric hospital. Psychiatric hospital is obviously a scary place, but there is the ability to reflect and grow after being in there, because I did. And it gave me the ability to face the next chapter of my life. Not just adopting a positive mindset, it's maintaining it that matters, because life gets in the way. We're all realistic and we live in the real world. Maintaining that positive mindset is something that I've learned, and I have some advice on not just the things that worked for me, but some of the things that really didn't. One good example of that would be when I'm addressing schools. I have the privilege of talking to year 11 groups, and there's some obvious statements and there's some quite close to the bone, all very real and all very recent, but far too profound and inappropriate to present to 15 and 16-year-old children. Now, that's not to say that I don't offer my profound story, because I do, but I have to explain it and deliver it in a more sensitive way. Another example of that is when I talk to the prison service and I speak to inmates, because there's guys in there that have genuinely attempted suicide, and it can be extremely triggering for a potentially volatile audience. So once again, my profound story is discussed, but in a way to be non-triggering. Some people get stressed about something that somebody else, it would just be water off a duck's back, and we never know what's going on in somebody else's mind, and we don't know how resilient they are. We don't know where they are. They might be out there doing their everyday thing, but emotionally they're on the red line, and we might not necessarily know that. I talked about the acute anxiety earlier, and that's very similar. I was not your average candidate to be an anxious guy, but my anxiety was so acute. I can remember vividly thinking when I was lying in bed, I could see the roof of my house being ripped off by wind and rain, and it was real and it was happening. I could hear it, I could sense it, and what trouble would we be in then, and what could I do about it? That's how vivid it was for me. It's an underlying problem in so many people's lives, and I think the key is to recognize it. Go back to a bit of self-compassion. Look at yourself, look at your sleeping pattern, look at your concentration, your focus, look at your relationship, and recognize it. Once you recognize it and accept it, then you have a chance of addressing it. Something that I've learned along the way, and if I'm honest, it took me almost 40 years to realize this. We have to live life on life's terms. This is something that might sound a little bit obvious, but they say that while we're making plans, God laughs. And we have to accept that. We have to be realistic. We can do planning, we can have ambitions, but we do live life on life's terms. Something else that I've learned along the way is that I love and I am loved. And finally, I would like to say that happiness is a word that's thrown around an awful lot. I just want to be happy. I just want her to be happy. In terms of happiness, we have to realise that happiness is fleeting. It's not a permanent state. It's not a destination that we can just arrive at and be happy. Because, as we talked about earlier, we live life on life's terms. So happiness comes and it goes. We take it and we enjoy it, and we look forward to the next period of happiness.